Societies that practice intensive agriculture created new individuals and social groups, including nobles and peasants. Peasants are rural food producers who are integrated into a larger society politically and economically. Peasants often have little power, are relatively poor, and are looked down upon by higher classes such as craftsmen, merchants, and nobles. Most farming peoples also have domesticated animals, including cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, horses, llamas, alpacas, yaks, camels, and reindeer, depending on location. Pastoralists or herders produce most of their food by raising, caring for, and subsisting on the products of their livestock. Pastoralism has particular practices associated with it. First, nomadism is a form of seasonal mobility when pastoral peoples move livestock herds to locations with good pasture land. Second, transhumance is a widespread pattern of pastoralists, and it involves migrating to different elevations because of seasonal changes in temperature, rainfall, and fecundity of pasture land. In mountainous regions, for example, herders spend the winter months in the valleys and move their herds to higher elevations in the summer. Pastoralism allows for the conversion of inedible plants, such as grasses, into edible products. It helps people cope with environments where agriculture is risky or impossible. Mobility is easier because food and other products can be transported on the hoof. Farmers usually have to stay put during the growing season. Pastoralism also provides fibers and hides that are sold for cash or traded for useful products. This map shows some principal areas of pastoralism in the contact period. As noted above, several of these regions, such as the Sahara, Arabian, and Kalahari deserts, were too dry for agriculture. In industrial production systems, machines and the energy that powers them substitute for human labor, allowing people who could otherwise be producing food, wood, and metals to find other jobs in factories and services. The Industrial Revolution began in Great Britain in the late 1700s and then spread to the rest of North America and Europe. At first, much of the power came from water wheels. Later, coal was used to boil water to produce steam power. Still later, the energy stored in oil and natural gas was unlocked for human uses. Of course, today, much agricultural production has also been industrialized. Industrial agriculture involves the massive mechanization of farming and the mass production of foodstuffs. In the 20th century, agricultural production, shifting from family-owned and run farms to large corporate-run farms or agribusinesses that rely on the intensive use of machinery such as tractors and combines, irrigation systems, pesticides, fertilizers, and fossil fuels. Industrial agriculture has resulted in high production rates, but also increasing environmental and health concerns. For example, chemical fertilizers and pesticides pose dangers to workers in the local water supply. Antibiotics that keep poultry and livestock healthy seep into the human food chain. Genetic engineering reduces crop diversity and may make plants more susceptible to weather and pests over the long term. Much of the food we now consume is also processed industrially. Whether we shop at the local food chain or dine in corporate fast food restaurants, our food consumption has also become industrialized. As industrial production systems from Great Britain to Europe and North America, they have also led. Industrial production systems spread from Great Britain to Europe and North America, leading to increasing environmental changes. As industrial production has become global, these changes have intensified. Changes include climate change, water scarcity, overpopulation, extreme poverty, and environmental degradation. As globalization intensifies, it escalates the human impact on the planet and on other humans, further accelerating the pace of change. The extraction of resources required for current forms of industrialism has led to depletions, landscape destruction, soil erosion, and other deteriorations in the environment. Governmental regulations are needed to prevent further deteriorations. As globalization intensifies, it escalates the human impact on the planet and on other humans, further accelerating the pace of change. The extraction of resources required for current forms of industrialism has led to depletions, landscape destruction, soil erosion, and other types of environmental degradation. Governmental regulations are needed to prevent further degradation, such as global climate change, but there is no standard regulatory rule for global production. A key environmental consequence of global industrialization and increased resource use is global warming. International debate abounds about which countries should fix the damage of global warming and climate change. If the West has been the historic and current source of most climate change, why should citizens of developing countries pay the full price for damage already done? Some industrial countries locate their most polluting industries in the developing world in order to avoid regulation in their home countries. Globalization of production thus also entails the globalization of its consequences.